This week, Microsoft will not fix Skype anytime soon. More Lenovo issues, romance scams, selling exploits, hijacking your Switch, ad blocker, or crypto mining. HTTPS everywhere. Tim Helming from Domain Tools joins us today for expert commentary. So stay tuned for all that and more on this episode of Hack Naked News. This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show that brings you the security news each week. And despite popular belief, we do wear pants. It's Hack Naked News.
Most of the organizations I work with, they have
released, yes, you read it,
actually do
the original Linux kernel security with Linux.
So I hope everybody has their resistance built up.
Brought to you by Domain Tools help security analysts turn threat data into threat intelligence. They take indicators from your network, including domains and IP addresses, and connect them with nearly every active domain on the internet. Those connections drive risk assessments, help profile attackers, guide online fraud investigations, and map cyber activity to attacker infrastructure. Fortune 1000 companies, global government agencies, and leading security solutions vendors use the Domain Tools platform as a critical ingredient in their threat investigations and proactive defenses. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/domain tools. Do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these things can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending your assets? Have you penetration tested your public assets? Start 2018 by taking a proactive approach to securing your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting at blackhillsinfosec.com and see how they can help you sleep better at night. Welcome everyone to Hack Naked News, episode 161. For February 14th, 2018, the Vulnerabilities with Love edition for this Valentine's Day. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, coming at you live from G-Unit Studios in lovely Rhode Island. Make sure you check out our on-demand material, some of our previously recorded webcasts, as well as some new ones that we're recording exclusively for the on-demand content. You can find all of that content, register, and consume it at securityweekly.com/on-demand. And now, the security news for this week, which is apparently twice in my teleprompter. Okay, hey, Microsoft is not refusing, but won't patch a Skype vulnerability anytime soon. A new vulnerability has been discovered in Skype, which is a DLL hijacking vulnerability reported to Microsoft by security researcher Stefan Kantak. Stefan, is that like a joke? Did someone update my teleprompter? It looks like Kathak, maybe? I can't read, I'm old. So he did that this week and will require Microsoft to rewrite a significant portion of Skype's code, requiring a shiny new version to be distributed to Skype users, presumably on all Windows platforms, as it's specific to DLL hijacking in certain aspects of Skype. No word on when this will happen, but stay tuned if you're a Windows Skype user. Lenovo is warning users of a critical Wi-Fi vulnerability that's impacting dozens of models of ThinkPads. Lenovo warned customers on Friday of two critical Broadcom vulnerabilities impacting 25 models of its popular ThinkPad brand. The vulnerabilities were first revealed in September, and originally they were only reported to impact specific Broadcom chipsets used in Apple iPhones, Apple TV, and Android devices. This vulnerability follows a couple of recent vulnerability announcements from Lenovo on their platforms, making me a bit leery of using hardware from Lenovo. Though they are patching, multiple issues such as these are not a good sign. Romance scams are rampant as today is Valentine's Day. Attackers have always been opportunistic with phishing campaigns, exploiting current events and holidays to trick users into getting infected. This scam is particularly interesting as victims are encouraged to share revealing photos of themselves, which scammers use later to leverage extortion shakedowns. Seriously? Do people fall for this one? Damn. Zerodium offers $45,000 for Linux zero-day vulnerabilities. This seems a bit shady to me, as Zerodium touts itself as its customers as those that may include government agencies that require exploits for purposes including breaking device encryption or conducting covert surveillance. I believe this is a bit unethical in really a way just to justify selling your exploits on the black market. The good angel on your shoulder should tell you to responsibly disclose the vulnerability to the Linux development teams, but of course, that doesn't net you any money, but I digress. Hackers hijack Nintendo Switches. This one's kind of exciting. Ars Technica is reporting that hackers have cracked the Nintendo Switch this week. The hacking team Fail Overflow claimed a major advance in the effort, tweeting a picture showing Linux booting up on the machine. While Fail Overflow's Floto wouldn't be difficult to Photoshop, the group has a great track record for significant hacks for systems ranging from the Nintendo Wii to the PS4 in the past, landing credibility to this hacking of the Nintendo Switch. I think this is really cool, really nothing more. And speaking of Linux vulnerabilities, inserting a USB drive into your Linux box could be a bad thing if you're running KDE Plasma. You'll want to be aware of this thumb drive vulnerability and USB sticks that are plugged into your vulnerable computer. If it has a volume containing special characters, those are executed as shell commands. KDE Plasma users are advised to update their systems as soon as possible to version 5.12.0 or later. Salon website gives you a choice if you're running an ad blocker, although I don't think it's a very good choice at all. Salon is giving you a choice if you want to disable your ad blocker, or don't want to disable your ad blocker, rather. Maybe you'll feel more comfortable letting it run code from a coin hive, which will gobble up your CPU's computer resources to mine some Monero cryptocurrency. Not a good trade-off, in my opinion. And in news we've reported on several hundred times in the past 14 or so years, a zero-day flash vulnerability is being exploited in the wild. It should come as no surprise that there is another zero-day vulnerability in Flash being exploited. Previously unknown flaw, which has been labeled CVE 2018-4878 and affects Flash version 28.0.0.137 and earlier for both Windows and Mac, and pretty much everything on the planet, including Chrome's Flash player, which runs on Windows, Mac, Linux, and Chrome OS. So if you're still running Flash, you probably shouldn't. If you insist on running Flash, you should update it pretty much all the time. Except this is a zero-day vulnerability, which means even if you update it, there is no patch yet. Google is making some strides into making the internet a more secure place by marking all non-HTTPS sites insecure in July of this year. Good news for companies selling SSL certificates. Google is ramping up its campaign against HTTP-only sites and is going to mark all of those sites insecure again in July of this year with its release of Chrome 68. It's a pretty strong move, but Google and the internet in general has been moving in this direction for some time. So if you haven't purchased SSL certificates for your sites, now's probably a good time to do that. And with that, we're going to take a short break, come back with Tim Helming from Domain Tools, so stay tuned. IT Pro TV, binge-worthy learning for IT teams. Why is it binge-worthy? It's learning presented in an engaging and entertaining talk show format that beats voice-over PowerPoint snooze fests. Watch over 3,300 hours of content in their on-demand library, on your desktop, on the go, or in the comfort of your own living room. IT Pro TV is IT training you and your team actually want to watch, which means a better return on your learning investment. Get started with IT Pro TV for Teams by visiting itpro.tv/Security Weekly and start a 7-day free trial and get 30% off standard or premium IT Pro TV memberships using the code SECWeekly30. Welcome back, everyone, to Hack Naked News. We use IT Pro TV, so should you. Awesome training. If you want to get up to speed on a whole bunch of topics, make sure you check them out, itpro.tv/Security Weekly. They've got solutions for teams. So if you work for an organization and you want all of your team members to get training, you can do that, and managers can keep tabs on all of the training efforts across your organization. You should do that. It's awesome. Now, I would like to bring on, reporting from Seattle, Washington, everyone say hi to Tim Helming from Domain Tools. Tim, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Good to be here. Happy Valentine's Day. Did you get the flowers?
I did not. I'm sure they're probably on the way.
Oh, man. Well, I'll have to get on it. The singing telegram?
Yeah, I did not get anything today, Tim, unfortunately.
Oh, man.
I'm very upset about that. Thanks for thinking of me, though.
All right. Good to be here.
So, Tim, you wanted to cover a story that I thought was interesting, and I didn't get a chance to dig into it. It sounded like there was some crypto mining bad people out there that were targeting ICS systems, and I wasn't quite sure where the story was going, but thankfully you're here to tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I thought this was interesting. And so, following on the heels of the story that you told us about a second ago, at least Salon gives you the choice, right? It's not a good choice, like you said, but you get the choice. Do you want to run some crypto mineware or not? And in this case, this was a water utility in England. And their security provider detected some suspicious activity going on the network, including some communications out to a suspicious IP address, and I guess before that, some reconfigurations on the OT network, the operational technology network. That's not good, right? That's what's operating the machines there. So anyway, what it turned out was going on, though, in this case, the attackers were not actually compromising the function of the water utility. They were just trying to make a little money doing some crypto mining. So this is the first example that I think we've seen so far of a SCADA system being the target for crypto mining. But, it's just a sign that this is everywhere. This is the biggest proliferating family of different types of malware at this point.
Yeah, I find this very interesting, Tim, because it's almost like we've come full circle. When I was working for a large university, I started there in 2001. And what I noticed a pattern of when people would exploit systems is they would use them back then for interesting purposes, mostly to take advantage of bandwidth. And so they didn't care what was on the system. They wanted to use it to distribute media. So, that was all kinds of pirated material, pornography, hacking tools, whatever. And it was used to launch distributed denial of service attacks. And that was the motivation of the attackers. I wasn't quite sure how they would monetize the hosting of material. I'm sure there were certain cases where they would do that. But certainly the DDoS for hire is a big business. And being a university, of course, we were targeted. So we had a lot more bandwidth than everyone else at the time. Now, as the environment changes, bandwidth is a lot more ubiquitous, and the attacker motives have changed. What hasn't changed is the attackers are going to do whatever it takes to make money, oftentimes not caring what's on that system. And they could go after an attack that is, cyber terrorism. They could do ransomware and extort money. They could do a lot of things. But in this case, they're crypto mining. So we've come all the way back to they're going to compromise infrastructure and to do whatever the latest trend is, which is just today happens to be crypto mining.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's a couple, I think back in 01, there was a little bit more of this kind of activity was just done for the lulls and, sort of trophy hunting, right? So there was a certain amount of that, and it may have been hard to monetize, like you're saying, hosting content at that point. But, what it really amounts to is everybody was practicing, right? They were getting better and better at what they were doing.
It's true.
And some of them at the time probably realized that there was one way or another that they were going to be able to make money off this at some point. And some of them moved into the white hat world and some of them didn't. And some of them are somewhere in between. But so this thing on the SCADA system, it's interesting. There's a couple of things to think about there. One of them is, in general, we see in really hardened environments, ironically enough, sometimes they're running older systems because they are known quantities and they are very, very isolated, so they're not necessarily pulling down patches at the same rate. If they're air-gapped, that's harder to do. If they're air-gapped, it's also harder to get the malware onto them, and I don't think that was the case in this particular network. In fact, you can tell that it wasn't. But we've seen air-gapped systems breached by USB drives and stuff like that. So anyway, but these are older systems in a lot of cases. They're probably not going to have a lot of horsepower to get all that mining done. So I think this is interesting. It was caught. It's probably it's shut down at this point, I think. But it just goes to show that they are going to look at everything to start mining. I mean, what are we going to see? IoT devices, crypto mining? I guess it's possible. They don't have a lot of horsepower, but if you can command a few 100,000 webcams, I guess maybe you could get somewhere if you can get them to mine. That's total speculation too. But look, the whole in Iceland, crypto mining is equal now in power consumption, or very close to it, to the entire rest of the country, right? So it's obviously a big deal, and people are doing everything they can to make money off it.
And that's interesting, because I flagged that Iceland story for an upcoming show this week, and I was curious as to why Iceland was chosen for that. Is it because it's really cold there, and when the systems run really hot, they take advantage of the environment?
I believe that actually is part of the deal. I know that there have been elsewhere in Europe. I think Google put up some massive data centers for exactly that reason, because they were using cold seawater to cool all the CPUs. I think in Iceland that could be part of it, and it could be partly that they put out some pretty strong financial incentives to build data centers. But yeah, I'll look forward to hearing that episode, because that's a really, really interesting story. And the world is going to have to come to terms with what we're going to do about the energy consumption of crypto mining, because here we're making strides, right, about becoming more energy efficient, and now you've got this throwing a wrench in the works. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I find it interesting to see what types of systems the attackers are targeting to do the crypto mining. It seems that their #1 criteria so far across the board, and it's kind of a generalization, but it's whatever has the weakest security or lacking of security and vulnerabilities. It doesn't matter how powerful the device is, what the bandwidth is, how easily or difficult or how hard the security teams will try to discover vulnerabilities. It just seems to be about compromising as many systems as possible that are the low-hanging fruit to turn them into crypto miners. So like you were alluding to, Tim, that could be your smartphone, that could be IoT devices, it could be ICS systems, it could be anything. As long as they're able to gain a foothold and use it, as long as they get enough of them, they can successfully crypto mine.
Yeah, I mean, look, the mass spreading of any kind of wares is obviously an opportunism type of game, right? And so you're gonna shoot for everything you can get, and compromise anything you can get your hands on, and that's going to include all kinds of systems, some of which may not be, something you would consider to be optimal for that kind of activity, but they're going to get whatever they can get, and they're also, I can say with confidence, they're working on developing wares for any OS and platform, because when you get big numbers working in your favor, then it doesn't matter as much if each individual system is less capable. So, part of the takeaway is no matter what it is, you got to secure it. You got to keep you got to keep things tight, because it's potentially vulnerable no matter what it is.
Awesome. Any other thoughts or commentary on this particular story, Tim?
No, on this one, I think we've kind of covered it. I just think, it'll be interesting for all of us to keep our eyes out on anything that gets into a SCADA network is interesting. Maybe that's ultimately the bigger takeaway is if attackers are able to reach a SCADA network, an operational technology network, that's not a good thing. And in this case, they're not, they didn't foul up this water utility as far as its operations go. But what if the next malware could, right? So SCADA attacks are something obviously we all got to pay a lot of attention to and care about. Absolutely.
Tim Helming from Domain Tools, thank you very much for appearing on this episode of Hack Naked News. Thank you to everyone for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.